Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
We have heard it time and time again. Social media can be bad for your mental health, but in today's world, it seems close to impossible to avoid it completely. So, could there be a happy and healthy medium? New research out of the University of British Columbia suggests there is one. In fact, there are ways to make social media work in your favor. I'm Melanie Ng, and in this episode of The Big Story, we dig into the research findings with lead study author and psychology professor at UBC, Amori Mikami. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Let's begin at the very start of all of this. Why there are so many different studies out there when it comes to social media and impact on your mental health. So why did you want to do another one? What were your hopes to find?
Well, it's exactly what you said. We hear so much about how social media is bad for you, but then the recommendation or the answer seems just to be to try to quit entirely. But we thought, well, how realistic is that for people? Also, conversely, is there anything good about social media? And so what we set out to test is to try to find a way that we could help people lean into the good stuff and log out from the bad stuff.
I love this because it really doesn't seem realistic. Also dependent on what people do for a living. Social media can be part of your job, and so to avoid it completely feels unattainable for many. So let's go through your methodology, who you looked at, who your study subjects were, and what you did through this whole process.
Well, we enrolled emerging adults who had some level of psychopathology, so either ADHD or depression or anxiety symptoms, and also thought that social media had at least some negative effects on their health. This is because we wanted them to be motivated to try something different. And then we divided them into 3 groups by random assignments. So that's a process where they literally had an equal chance of being in each one of the 3 groups. And in one of the groups, where we was the abstinence group, and we just asked them to quit or cut back on social media entirely. Another group was the control group, where we didn't have them do anything different than what they typically do. But then that third group, an education group, we gave them a psychoeducational program meant to try to, like I was saying, lean into the good stuff that you might get out of social media while stepping back from what could be harmful to your mental health.
Okay, so you looked at this group over a 6-week period. What were some of the evaluations? Was it self-evaluation? Was it screen time? Was it a bunch of different factors?
Yeah, well, a number of things, as you can imagine, was self-report on how stressed, depressed, or anxious they were feeling, how much FOMO or loneliness they might be having. But we also did get some objective measures. For instance, we had them take screenshots of their screen time tracker on their phone and send it to us.
Okay, so now let's go through some of the groups and perhaps some of the findings that stood out to you. So as you said in the very beginning, someone, if they're told, yeah, get off social media, abstain, don't do it, there are definitely some positives to not doing it. So for the group who abstained, what did you find?
Well, I think the main takeaway that I saw from the study is that both the group that abstained and the group who we gave the psychoeducational program to seemed to do better than the control group. So for the group that abstained, they lowered in depression, anxiety, and stress over the course of the 6-week period. They were the only group to do that. But I think with the educational group, they were the only group to lower in FOMO, the fear of missing out, and loneliness. Both groups, however, did reduce in some other things like the negative social comparisons that you make when you're on social media.
So I'm thinking about this whole FOMO idea. If I was in this group and I was told, get off your social media for 6 weeks, I would think, oh man, I won't know what my friends are up to. I won't be plugged into the latest trends. And so it'd be exactly the FOMO that you spoke to. So for that group where you gave them some ways to navigate it, so they didn't completely unplug, but they were given tools, what kinds of tools did you give them or direction tips that were given to them to help them still maintain a healthy relationship with social media?
Well, the idea is that if you ask teens or emerging adults what is the best part about social media, they pretty much all say it's connecting with friends or family, particularly those who live far away, people who care about you. For teens or young adults who have marginalized or stigmatized identities, sometimes they really talk about finding an online community of supportive others who have similar lived experience. So that's really what they say is the best part of social media. So our tips and tricks were really about how to lean into that. So one of the things we talked about with the participants is just to think about, well, who do you really want to strengthen your relationship with or maintain or strengthen a good relationship with on social media? Somebody who you care about, who cares about you. When you see their successes, you're happy for them. And vice versa, they're probably interested in what you're doing because they genuinely are rooting for you. So this probably is not the influencer you're following, right? Or the
The celebrity.
yeah, or the frenemy from school. And so we asked them to do things to intentionally try to lean into those relationships. Like either structure your news feeds such that you are predominantly or nearly exclusively seeing content for those people, or take some time to check out their page and to try to interact with it too. So, leave a comment. Or it could be send them like a direct message privately too about some of the stuff that they're posting about online or tag them in something that you wrote.
So it creates the engagement because not all commenting or engagement are equal. As you noted, if it's someone that you truly care about, that you want to follow, it's a family member, it's a friend, someone you admire, versus the influencer, the celebrity, the frenemy, that if you create a comment there, perhaps that engagement isn't fulfilling. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, exactly. And then also, I think that with influencers or celebrities or frenemies, people often say that they feel bad after they spend a lot of time scrolling and following their stuff. And it could be because they're comparing themselves to that person. It could also be like the whole doom scrolling thing where they feel like they're just wasting time and then starting to get more and more anxious about the state of the world or other things going on. So if that's the stuff, another tip we taught the participants was just pay attention to how your activities on social media are making you feel. So if it's stuff where afterwards you're noticing, yeah, I'm not feeling great about myself after doing that, notice that and then intentionally think about, well, how can you reduce those types of activities? So it could be muting or unfollowing accounts that make you feel that way. It could be just when before you go on social media, instead of just mindlessly picking at your phone to check social media, but you don't even know why you're doing it. Go on with a purpose. It's really to catch up with this friend and try to stay focused on that purpose instead of getting sucked into the stuff that's making you feel bad.
Just getting down that rabbit hole. As you said, next, especially for something, say like Instagram, you're jumping from story to story to story. It's easy to waste that time. I know when I get my screen time report on my phone, I am appalled because I'm thinking, wow, imagine what I could have done with all of that extra time. Question for you, Amori. Did you look at certain social media apps? Were there specific ones that were part of this study?
Yes, and that is one of the limitations to the study. So when we collected the data for the group we were looking at, so like 18 to 29-year-olds, Instagram and then Facebook were the most popular platforms. So we looked at those two.
Gotcha. Or did you see any differences between the two by any chance in your findings?
Not in our findings, but there has been some other research about this suggesting that maybe the image-based focus of Instagram can sometimes be worse for body image. But the news-based focus of Facebook could sometimes be worse for anxiety in terms of like thinking about the state of the world and all the awful things that are going on.
Yeah, there is a lot going on. That's for sure. So let me ask you this. So you have all of this incredible research that comes your way. Again, close to 400 participants in this study, and really following their movements. What do you do with this information? It sounds like this is something that could be beneficial to, say, school boards or to colleges, universities, and being able to really teach a healthy relationship with social media. Is that something that would be your goal, that you would like to do, or that perhaps you've already done?
hmm Well, that is my hope. I mean, I think, like you said, it's really easy to get sucked in. And I think that there's a reason for that. Social media, well, it's a company, it's a business. Their incentive is to keep you on the platform for as long as possible, no matter what, right? Like in the end, it doesn't matter if you feel good about yourself or not. It's like how much time you spent on the platform that's rewarding to the companies. So sometimes actually people who are angry get angry or upset, actually spend longer on a platform. So anyway, my point is that it's so easy to get sucked in. I feel like anybody could probably benefit from this and from these tips, and I feel like it really distills down to just be more intentional and mindful about when and why you're using social media and what you're doing on it. And listen to yourself, listen to your feelings and your own body. And I think you'll come to the right conclusions.
Amori, if you were to do this study again, what are some other parameters you would look to explore or expand in order to get a bigger tap on the population? Because I saw you're looking at a certain age group, which is incredible because that's where it really begins, right? The emerging age of like the teen up to the 29. Um, do you think that you would look at, if you were to start again, the older groups and see how they interpret social media in a different way?
Well, if anything, I think my tendency is probably to look younger, so to secondary school students, because a number of the participants in our study said in the education group said that they found the tips and tricks helpful, but they feel like they really would have found it more helpful when they were in secondary school because they said that at that time it really felt like their high school was their world. So things that were happening or not happening or things that they were getting left out of on social media felt like they just were a very big deal. And once you get to university or, past that stage in your life, maybe you have more ability to have perspective. And okay, maybe it's not as big of a thing. They also said that in high school, they often had trouble with procrastination. Not so stopping social media, or not using social media when they really had work to do. And that, they thought it was, if anything, better now, once they got older, and they just attributed that to immaturity.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope as an adult. I'm listening to this thinking like, yes, I will unplug, but Amori, I'm going to be honest with you. I spent probably before our call here a good 20 minutes down that rabbit hole just looking at silly videos and thinking, "Uh-oh, what have I done with my time? That's horrible." I think sometimes we get set in our ways and our paths, but as you said, there are ways to reverse it if you are aware of it and using your time in a way that is intentional. I love this. I mean, I would you recommend to someone, okay, so they're reading the study and they say this is great for that emerging age group. And so let's say someone's listening to this, they are 40, 50, 60 years old. The biggest takeaway for them, do you say, you know, all right, when you wake up in the morning, what are you looking at? Or what are some pieces of advice for people who might be in the older age group?
Well, we know so much less about older adults and their social media use in general. I feel like that's a real gap in the literature. Some of what does exist, though, I understand, that suggests that older adults might actually be protected, relatively more protected from some of the adverse mental health effects of social media. And it might be because they are, in fact, more likely to be using it to keep in touch with people they care about, like seeing pictures of their grandkids online, for instance, would be a good example, as opposed to following the latest influencer or feeling like the popular kid at their school looks better than them and isn't inviting them to that party. So older adults might, be using it smarter to begin with.
I mean, I think this is such an interesting study because it's the first one that I've read in a long time that said, wait, you don't have to put it completely down. There are ways to navigate. So, as a final message for our listeners, what are your biggest pieces of advice or takeaways from the study or anything that you have found when it comes to mental health and social media?
Yeah, just you know yourself best. And if you look inward and pay attention to how you're feeling after you're doing certain behaviors on social media, then I think you'll figure out the right path for yourself and you'll figure out what is bringing you down. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Think about before you pick up and check social media, think about, okay, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for a good reason? Am I going to get something good out of it? And, for the record, like you gave the example of watching a bunch of funny videos, but then then it turned into 20 minutes and then maybe you felt like I wasted time. Um, you have to just ask yourself, well, what is the appropriate amount of time to be watching funny videos? Because it sounds like this might be the sort of thing where you watch a funny video and it is uplifting actually because it's funny. But then if you just get stuck in that rabbit hole and you watch way too many, then it becomes like a time suck. So maybe it's just that for you, think about, okay, do I need a little pick me up? Do I want to see something funny? How much time it would be the right amount of time to be doing that, or when's the right place to be doing that?
I love it. This study, Logging Out or Leaning In, Social Media Strategies for Enhancing Well-Being, published in the Journal of Experimental Psychology. Give it a look through. There's a lot of great information there. Amori Mikami with UBC, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And that was The Big Story. You can always send us feedback on this episode or any other episode. Email us at hello@thebigstorypodcast.ca. You can find us on the Seeker app or on all your favorite podcast players. And remember, you can rate, review, you can follow and share. I'm Melanie Ng. Thank you for listening.